Speaker Anthony Rendon. My first question for you in this insanely chaotic week is, how are you?
I'm tired. I'm really, really tired. A lot of long nights and a lot of good work, but I'm very, very tired. It's been a lot.
Yeah, it's been a lot between budget and this transition that we're going to see at the end of the week. And I told you this was going to be an unconventional interview, so my first question for you is, I know you're an avid reader.
Yep.
What are you reading right now?
Reading a book. My friend Marjorie Perloff is a early 20th century avant-garde poetry professor, was a poetry professor, now she's retired. She translated a book, Italian poet by the name of Scotti, something like that. I'm reading his book. It's called, I think it's called Fragments or something. It's here. It's great. It's really hard. I'm not sure I get it all, but it's good. And my friend translated it, so I get to tell her that I read it.
Okay. How many pages is that?
It's pretty short, 120, I think.
Okay, so
yeah.
In comparison to like the budget, for example.
It's not quite as long as the budget, but 100 times more interesting.
I mean, is there a literary character right now, kind of in this moment, that you connect to the most that you can think of? I mean, it could be any book, not necessarily something you've recently read.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the sort of like the Charles Bukowski characters from his books, like, Post Office, Hollywood, Women, Ham and Rye. All of his characters are people who, like, get beat up a lot, but keep on going. Yeah, I like Charles Bukowski. I like his characters. His characters are real. They're not necessarily heroic in a traditional way, and I think that's real.
I think some would see you as a hero in terms of policy and things that have been able to pass out of this body. I mean, what if there's any one moment or piece of legislation that you are most proud of in your time as Speaker, what would you say it is?
I think it's the stuff around the LA River, the lower Los Angeles River in particular. The redevelopment of the Los Angeles River has been something that it went from sort of not being on my radar at all to being a complete obsession, and to work on the revitalization of it, to put an arts center along it, to hopefully put a light rail station along it, to develop a master plan. All that stuff is this sort of perfect intersection of all the things that interest me, arts and culture with parks and good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And that's something in your district,
Yeah.
in your area. I mean, anything statewide that's had.
I think what we did around climate change was huge, and the timing was huge too. And the way, I think what was so, the drama around the story was to watch it fail maybe 6 months before, not even close, to almost tripled the number of votes, and to see the work that went into it, Eduardo Garcia in particular, but a lot of members did the work. That's one of those sort of like, turnaround stories that I find so compelling.
Mm-hmm. It included the governor's climate package
Yep.
in that? Okay,
Yep,
from
exactly.
last year.
Yeah,
okay.
for sure.
I know at the PPIC lunch today you mentioned regrets, 80 of them
Yeah.
a minute. That's a lot.
Quite a bit.
In terms of, you have decentralized your role as Speaker.
Yeah.
You have been an unconventional Speaker, giving power to others. And I know you mentioned maybe that you should have been maybe not as quick to forgive or redeem.
Right.
And I wonder do you think not having done so led you to this point, or anything else you want to expand on that?
I could see that. Yeah, I mean, I think, often you call people in, you say, hey, what's up? What's going on? And it's often like, oh, it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't this, it was that. I think that happens a lot in life, but it happens a lot here in the building as well. And I think, I probably could have been a little bit more discerning or definitive at certain instances. But, that being said, is what it is, and we are where we are.
Mm-hmm. How will this work moving forward? I mean, with Rivas, will you attend caucus meetings? Will you ask for a chairmanship of a committee? I mean, how will this work moving forward?
No, I mean, I'm not going to ask for a chair of a committee. I'm the chair of the Committee on Joint Arts, which is cool. It's fun. I have a lot of ideas about what I want to do there. In terms of attending caucus, no. I've been here with 2 Speaker Emerituses, neither of them attended caucus. So 12 to 1 on Tuesday, that's lunchtime.
It's lunchtime. So, I mean, will it just be kind of a hands-off approach? Like, are you worried that because you were once a leader and still, I know there's a significant chunk of the body that still sees you as such, I mean, do you just not want to get in the way?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to get in the way. It's also sort of not who I am. I spoke at my high school graduation the other day, and it was actually the first time I'd been on campus since I graduated, right? I'm not the type of person who goes back and kind of, I'm not nostalgic, and I'm good at sort of closing doors. So yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna, I have a lot of work to do as an assembly member, and that'll keep me busy.
Yeah. In your time as speaker, you went through a lot, from dealing with massive wildfires to the pandemic. One thing you said today at the PPIC lunch was that maybe it wasn't the right move to essentially shut down the legislature during COVID-19. What did you mean by that?
Just that. I mean, there were a lot of people still working. We designated certain people essential workers. If we live in a democracy and we think the legislative branch is important, I think we should have been there doing the people's work. That is something that, it still stings, and I don't think we did the right thing.
Yeah, and I will say during COVID-19, the legislature pretty much handed over the governor a lot of power to make some single-handed decisions. I mean, does that play into that role, into some of that thinking that the legislature maybe should have had more of a hand?
Yeah, no, I definitely do, and I think it's had lasting repercussions here in the state. And I remember being on a call at the National Speakers Conference at that time with 50 other speakers, Democrats, Republicans, South, North, all over the country, and they said the same thing. They said the same dynamic was happening in other places, so it wasn't unique to us. I think if we had been in session, if we'd been in the building, a lot of the things that, it wouldn't have had that sort of lasting impact that it did.
I think some might see the pandemic as a moment where the governor, maybe there was this relationship created between the legislature and governor where he can ask for something and in a very short amount of time, and the legislature kind of just goes with it. And this budget is an example of that. Moving forward, I mean, just from an observer eventually of the legislature, do you think that there should be more of a check on his power moving forward? I know there's rumblings about the way the negotiations went down this past week. I mean, just what are your thoughts on that issue?
Well, first of all, none of this is about Gavin Newsom, right? It's about executive branch and the legislative branch. I think that should be clear. He's been great. He's been a very giving, very collaborative partner. In general, the tension between the executive branch and the legislative branch is something that and I'll be even more specific. I think large legislative bodies are more democratic than smaller legislative bodies, which is why I'm so proud to be in the state assembly. But yeah, there does need to be, we need to have strong legislatures, particularly at a time when democracy is being threatened all over the world. At a time when democracy is being threatened domestically, we have to have strong legislatures. A lot of that is about pushing back. And I really believe, I think, for me, to the extent that I've had an opportunity to think back over the past couple of weeks about the past couple of years, I think a lot of what I've been doing is talking about self-blame, right? Things that I and we as the legislative bodies were responsible for. So in that particular instance, I think that was on us. In politics, if there's a vacuum, somebody assumes it right away. So it made sense for the administration to sort of fill the vacuum that was left by our absence.
Mm-hmm. And you agree that maybe it has formulated into this habit now of the administration to ask for things at the 11th hour. I mean, is that fair to say?
I mean, I think in the past we saw that as well, and I think it's a tendency that doesn't allow for the best consideration of public policy, but I do think to an extent it increased during the COVID era.
Yeah. In terms of advice for Assemblyman Rivas, I know this is a question you have received nonstop. You've given a couple today at the lunch. It was to be flexible essentially with your schedule. Things will change. To the LA Times, actually, I've got the article right here. You said we've done a expletive job with Eastern California in terms of resources and making sure there's anything close to equity on their side of the state. And Eastern California is represented by Republicans in this body. A lot of people who say they feel suppressed, their voices are suppressed. And, understandably so, they're a super minority. But do you think that they should have had more of a voice, maybe during your speakership in the assembly.
Yeah, I think it's funny because Jim Gallagher, the Republican leader, just sent that quote to me. He liked it. Ashley Swearingen, former Republican mayor of Fresno, sent that quote to me as well. She liked it. And actually, you know, I mean, the Central Valley, I talk about in that quote, I talk about the Inland Empire, which is in this House completely dominated by Democrats. The majority of Central Valley legislators now are Democrats: Esmeralda Soria, Carlos Villalpudua, Joaquin Arambula. So, I mean, there's kind of, you know, I think the reality of Central Valley politics and inland politics is much more bipartisan than that. In terms of Republicans having more of a role, I think, you know, I think we were very inclusive. I served with 4 Republican leaders. I had really good relationships with all of them, so I have no regrets about that. That's not one of my 80 per minute.
Okay. And during the Trump, I think some observers have pointed out to me that the Trump era really sort of created, and not just in this state, but in every state, this division between the two parties that made it hard for people to work together. I mean, do you see a point in the future where that is no longer, or do you just see it getting worse?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I think that's more of a cultural question than it is a political question. I think it's more of a question of whether or not we change our culture to one that's less mean and nasty. You know, somebody was asking me that, you mentioned the PPAC report, and someone asked me, "Oh, did you see this tweet? Did you see that tweet?" Like, no, I don't look at that anymore. You know, it's just mean and nasty. I think we have a society that, to an extent, has gotten really, you know, mean, and that is that's a reflection reflected in our politics, and even, you know, when you talk about, you know, the division between Democrats and Republicans, you know, I think Trump was more a product of that than leading to that. So, you know, I think it's all, you know, the politics is a reflection of our culture, and I think that needs to change first.
Yeah. In terms of any other pieces of advice for Assemblyman Rivas going into his speakership?
I think you can't. You know, I have breakfast with our freshman members all the time, about once a month, I should say. And I always tell them, you know, when you get into you get into this job, you have interests, whether it's, you know, your family, reading, gardening, whatever it is that makes you you. If you give that up, A, you become a very uninteresting person, and then B, you're not any better at your job. You know, there comes a point, a saturation point, you know, where you need to sort of, like, you know, every great writer or every great novelist always says, you know, that they have to step away and do something else and let their sort of subconscious take over, right? You have to step away and do something else, and, you know, never give up the things that you care about that have nothing to do with politics. That's really important.
For you, that's been books and art, is that?
Books, art, my family, my wife, my daughter, just, like, you know, the simple joys of just, like, sitting in the backyard and eating dinner, you know, with my wife and drinking a beer and, you know, throwing my daughter's into Frisbee right now, throwing a Frisbee around, you just can't, you know, there's no substitute for that.
Yeah. Someone in your position in this moment, I think, again, going back to you being just an unconventional politician, I think would maybe have the ego to just step down, resign, leave the assembly. Why not for you?
I think it's an important job. I think representing my district, when I took over the speakership, what I told my constituents at my swearing-in ceremony, the district swearing-in ceremony, was, you know, if doing this job leads to less attention being paid to the district, then I don't want to do this job anymore. I don't think that was the case. I think we were able to allocate a lot of resources. The Cultural Arts Center is a great example of that because of my position. That being said, I want to go back. I want to jump in. I want to work on a lot of the, you know, we still have only one light rail station in the entire district. That's not enough. We don't have a community college in the district. We don't have a courthouse in the justice, so access to justice is an issue. And then, obviously, this Cultural Arts Center and the redevelopment of the Los Angeles River means everything to me. And as somebody who worked in the district, who worked for nonprofits for 20 years, you know, having that sort of hands-on, that sort of tangible relationship with the work that you do is really important to me. So it's exciting. The thought of getting my hands dirty is exciting.
Yeah, and you get to set policy too. I mean, any bills? I know, right, you're authoring a couple right now, but just any specific legislation changes that you're looking forward to?
I have a bill on freeway caps, which I think are cool. Let's cap freeways and put parks and cool stuff on them. That's one of the things I'm working on right now.
Okay. Do you really want to run for treasurer?
I do want to run for treasurer.
Okay.
Excited about it. It's a 2026 race, so it's kind of hard to think about. There's this job I got to finish out. I got to figure out what to do for 2 years in 2025 and 2026. But yeah, I do want to run for treasurer.
Okay. Anything else that you think we should know about Anthony Rendon and the rest of this week?
He's an often injured baseball player.
That's true.
Yeah.
How are you ready for that? I'm sure it's still going to happen. You're still an assembly person. Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
The text about him. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've told this story before. My wife and I, our first date after the baby was born was during the World Series. He hits 2 home runs. We have to leave our phone on because it's the first time we leave the baby with the babysitter, right? So we leave the phone on, and he hits home run. I get 50 texts. Oh, you hit a home run in the World Series. Funny. And then he hits another home run. I get 400 texts that ruined our first date night.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But it made for a memorable first date, right?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you think we should know?
I think that's it.